Welcome to Branding and the Beast, a podcast about storytelling through words and pictures. My name is Shaun Bernstein, and my co-host.
Alicia Disantis.
Great to see you, Alicia.
Same here.
This is our flagship episode. This is our first podcast, so we are just kind of going for it. And thank you so much for coming on this journey with us. This episode is brought to you by the Right Stuff Agency, making your business sound as good as it looks, and
38th and Kip, providing affordable and exceptional branding and design services.
awesome. Take it away, Alicia.
Great. So, our first episode is on personality in your branding and storytelling. Couldn't be a better time to talk about this. So, I'm going to share something with you that I think really resonates with a wide variety of companies right now and how they talk about themselves through a wide variety of marketing channels. So, this is a picture I found on LinkedIn. Do all your competitors sound the same? As industry leader in the competitive industry, we have over 25 years of experience helping clients implement tools they need for challenges of all types. We have unique solutions to meet your needs. Does that sound familiar?
I've heard it
So,
so many times over.
so many. It's all the same. It doesn't matter what type of industry it is. So many companies are scared to have personality in their branding and marketing. And I'll tell you, this was the case for so long, decades and decades. This was how companies operated. There was a fear of overstepping bounds, of offending someone, of being the nail. You don't want to be the nail that has to be hammered down. And times have changed so much in the past 15 years that companies really need to lean in to who they are in a personable way, who they represent, what their values represent.
I,
And yeah, go ahead. Go
I was
ahead.
going to say, I couldn't agree with that more. That's I don't know that many marketplaces that aren't at least relatively crowded. No matter what you're doing, there's someone else doing it. There's someone else doing it nearby. There's someone else who may be less expensive or quicker or what have you. So what sets you apart? How are
Right.
you going to stand out from your competition who might be equally as talented? What's unique about you and why are they going to go with you versus someone else? And that's where personality to me comes in.
Right. Well, not so much what makes you unique. You could even have the exact same product and benefit and value proposition, but the people behind the company and how you talk about yourself and the actual personality. It's like twins. There's twins that look exactly the same, but they are so different. And to me, it's a huge opportunity because I mean, the past 15 years, we had the recession blew the lid off, um, pulled the curtain back, like you said, with mortgages and predatory practices of banking, Me Too, Black Lives Matter, the pandemic, all these enormous things where companies really can't just sit back anymore and be like, yeah, that's okay, we're fine with it. They need to take a stance and they need to communicate their values with their audience. And yeah, you might lose some people, but you're going to gain that many more. And those people that agree with your stances and feel strongly about um, what's going on in the world along with you, they're going to be even more um, willing to buy from you and be a customer in the long term.
I think you're 100% right. The days of the big faceless corporation are no longer in vogue. We used to just accept it. That, the banks were
Right.
just big and faceless, and the massive, billion-dollar companies, that had kind of nothing to them. We were never going to see how they work. They just did their thing, and we bought, and we kind of functioned, like robots. And those days
Right.
are over. We don't have, now they're still massive corporations, but we know their founders as though, we know them as people. And
Right.
we know the people behind it, and we know those stories of, those backgrounds. And they do, even if it's, as you said, even if it's an identical product, it gives some sort of added dimension to the customer process and to the buying
Right.
process.
What you just said reminds me of that scene in Mary Poppins where they go into the bank and they're so mean to them. They're in that big echoey hallway with the chambers and the pillars, and it's like, no, that does not fly anymore. Like, you need to treat your customers as you would want to be treated.
The customers won't stand for anything else. If they're not being treated well, they're going to walk. Because there's that competition today, no one is, doing this entirely on their own. The loyalty is not what it was. They're going to go to someone else that they like a lot more.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. So I wanted to, speaking of that, I want to share my example of a company that's really leaning into personality. So I posted this on my LinkedIn. Some of the people who are watching this and listening to this now may have seen it. Charmin, the toilet paper company, on February 22nd, I can't even say this without laughing. February 22nd, 2022, they deemed Poop Day, number 2 day. Okay. They rented a barge in New York Harbor and they got an inflatable poop emoji and they drove. Is that what you do? Do you drive a boat? You drove the boat? Drove
I
the
think I,
barge.
I think you drive. I mean, they don't just drive themselves, or do
They
they?
do.
I don't know.
Is there another like sailing term to describe what you're doing
I
with a
can't
boat?
even swim. I'm the wrong guy to ask.
So they moved this boat through the New York Harbor. There's literally a photo I'll show you guys here with the Statue of Liberty behind it and this barge with this gigantic inflatable poop emoji with a giant banner that says 2222022. And I mean, what's Charmin? They're probably what, a Fortune 1000. I mean, they're a big CPG company. If they can do this, you certainly can get some personality in your branding and in your marketing.
Great example. And you look at something like toilet paper. Toilet paper does not inherently have its own personality. It's one of those necessary products, not something we like to think about. We don't want to think about what's associated with it, where it goes. So the marketing usually plays towards comfort and all of that. But they went a step beyond, and they really leaned in hard to have some fun.
Hmm. Hmm. Exactly. So I want to hear your example.
Sure. So my example we can put up is actually a little bit older than all of this and kind of comes before even some of the things you talked about. I'm based in Canada, and so marketing in Canada is an interesting venture because we are so much like the US on so many things that we do. And so a brand can get really unique here by really leaning into the Canadian aspect, whether it's made in Canada, whether it's advertising, that it's relatable to Canadians. We're a big, wide country, vast, made up of a lot of small cities, coast to coast, that are very regional. So it's yes, we're all Canadian, but Vancouver is very different than Toronto, than Montreal, than what have you. And so, what is it that really ties us all together? And Molson Beer, about 20 years ago or so, I think around 2000, leaned into this Joe Canada character. And it was an actor who I actually was lucky enough to meet a few years later. And they had him do this sort of, rant. And anyone in Canada will know exactly what I'm talking about. About, I'm not this Canadian stereotype or that Canadian stereotype. Uh, I don't live in an igloo. I I'm actually going to pull up the lyrics of the rant. I don't live in an igloo or read blubber or own a dog sled, although some people in Canada do. I don't know Jimmy, Sally, or Susie from Canada, although I'm certain they're really nice. That beaver's a truly proud and noble animal. really kind of leaning in super hard to the Canadian stereotypes that are true, that aren't, and ends with him basically working into a fervorous yell, "My name is Joe and I am Canadian," and everybody knew this ad. So this was, instead of just, oh, it's Canadian beer, yada yada yada. Look, Molson's not the greatest beer out there, but they really went for it, and it stuck. It's still known 20 years later.
Wow. I have to watch that.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, the link is very easy to find. If you search Joe Canada Rant, it is right there, and it's aged decently well because it's just gunning super hard on that personality front with no apologies.
All right. So, for our first episode ever, I am so excited to welcome Helen Gibson of Zing Credit Union. Thank you so much for being here and putting up with us as we muddle through this first episode.
It's truly my pleasure. I know what it feels like to start something new, and it's exciting, and I'm glad you let me be part of it.
Oh, man. Thank you. So,
Thanks for
I'm going
joining
to,
us.
oh, yeah, sorry, Shaun. I'm so excited. I'm not even letting you talk. I forgot
That's
that you're a part of
okay.
this.
I'm giving you the keys. You can drive the bus. I'll chime in where I can, but
Isn't that the most American thing ever? I'm already talking over you, my poor Canadian friend. You don't even get a word in.
we just gotta stay in the background. And when people look up and notice us, that's cool.
All right. Let me give you a little bit of information about Helen here. So, I've known Helen for about a decade now. She's VP of Strategic Outreach at Zing Credit Union based in Denver. She joined Zing in 2007. She's a former teacher, and she reached out to the community through financial literacy. Became an executive in 2012. Works in marketing, strategy, data analytics, community relations, operational training. Such a common type of person you see in credit unions that wear many hats and have to be really skilled in a wide variety of areas as you know being fiduciary responsibility to their members. uh, Obsessive about learning and fostering her team's development. I can attest to that. uh, she wants her team to love where they work. Credit unions create a meaningful work environment full of ways to impact their communities. Loves the credit union movement, believes that it's a critical part of our local and national economy, powering people to live authentically and make an impact. And I could not agree with you more about how important and absolutely uh, pivotal, more than ever, with everything going on in the United States, and globally with people are strapped for money. How important credit unions are in the community. Lastly, you can check out Zing Credit Union at myzing.com, which I absolutely love because it sounds like
Right?
amazing. That was intentional, yeah?
Yeah, to sound like there's some ownership because credit unions
Oh,
are all owned by their members. So it's not just Zing Credit Union, it's myzing.com.
Love it.
but it sounds like amazing.
Well, we
That's
like to use that a lot, but we might overuse it internally. I'll let the staff tell you sometime.
that's the first thing I thought of when I read it aloud is my Zing. I thought of amazing, and I was like, oh, that is absolutely brilliant. Uh, So on that note, tell us about this gigantic announcement you've made. You just rebranded.
Yeah, it was it has been a large change. For those of you who are unfamiliar with our market, we were Denver Community Credit Union. And I'm going to nitpick on your words a little bit. We didn't feel like we changed our brand because for us, our brand is way more than a name or a logo. It's that
Sure.
essential part of who we are. It's our purpose, it's how we treat our members. And those things stayed the same for us. But what we did do is change our name and colors to better reflect what we do for our members. And actually, this name, people ask me all the time, where did that come from? It's so different. We were working with a consultant, and we said we want something short and we want something that shows our dedication to our community and the work we do to power our members. And after listening to a focus group of our staff, they came up with this name because it showed the enthusiasm and energy that our staff have for serving our members. So for us, we didn't change our brand. We just put on better fitting clothes, a brand that
Right.
better fits what we're already doing.
Right. Right. And I mean that ties back to exactly what we were talking about with putting personality into it. Like what that zing. I mean, I guess it could be both a noun and a verb,
Oh, yeah.
right?
We're going to have some fun with that from an advertising copywriting edge.
Yeah. Well, you're getting into Shaun's area because he specializes in writing.
I'm the wordsmith.
He's
Oh,
the wordsmith.
so you're the one no one likes, but everyone needs.
I try to pretend to be likable. I mean, I'm Canadian, so
Be like,
I'm
I think that this word isn't quite right. Could you change it, please?
look, I'm Canadian. I'm hard to have strong feelings about one way or the other. Um, Although Alicia seems to have developed a few. No, it's there's there's a beauty to the sound of words. I love the sound of zing.
Yep.
It just kind of hits. It's just there. That's really great naming, and it shows you sort of the power of what one word can do.
It
Uh,
really can't. So we have this vice president of IT, and his daughter stole his button introducing the change and started running around the house dancing. I work for Zing Credit Union. And the video is darling. She should run a TikTok for us if we ever have one. Uh, but that's the energy. She never stole his name tag before. So I think you're right. I think the word itself speaks to people.
so
Exactly.
let me ask you about that because financial services can be historically, pardon me, a little stodgy. And a little, old fashioned in their thinking about their marketing. So, how did it work on your end that you sort of made this massive leap into something really into better fitting clothes that were a lot more fun? Let's put it that way.
I would tell you first that credit unions and banks have stodgy names for a reason. People want dependability, slow moving, solid institutions handling their money. And a risk we are taking with this name is that we're going to have to show that and fill the name with that security. Because we've been around since 1934 and we are not high risk takers. We are
That's
that
old
secure
school,
brand.
Helen. That's old school. When was the credit union movement founded? Like 1930?
Yes.
1932?
Uh, well, CUNA met in Estes Park in Colorado in 1934. So I think the act was actually done in 34. The first U.S. credit union was 1908. So yes, credit unions in the
Oh, okay.
United States, really many of them started in 1934 because that's when the legislation in the United States was started. I believe they started earlier in Canada, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not certain. But I'm pretty sure, due to other things I've studied, that they started a little earlier in Canada. So we are, yeah, very much. We were one of the first credit unions established in the Denver metro area. We were established for the city and county employees of Denver back then, and we still serve that group. So I, there's a reason we're stodgy, though. People want to know that they can depend on us. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think we're entering into a new time. We have fintechs that people are more attracted to, or that they feel better fit from a community impact, or they better understand. And we've got to meet people where they're at. And to me, that's not so much about stodginess or non stodginess, it's about being authentic, right? So if you are a stodgy location that's never going to try new things and going to be, slow moving and not agile for your community, then a stodgy name really fits. But for us, for Zing Credit Union, we've always listened a lot to our community and tried to innovate and try to do new things that make a difference. So we felt like we needed to be more authentic. So to me, it's most important to be authentic rather than stodgy or exciting or whatever. And we need to meet people where they're at. And I think, especially after what we've been through with the pandemic, people are ready for fresh innovation and new ways to live their lives. And money's just running the life, you know? We got to remember who we are. We are making their lives possible um, by giving them that stability underneath.
Right. To me, that makes a ton of sense. Is that even the way I think we look at money anymore, the way we look at what a financial institution is doing with our money, even looking to me, even looking at paper money anymore, it's not the same as it was a few years ago. I just feel like everything's changed with who we trust with our money and what it means to make a living versus work life balance. And in your case, to lean into that and to realize that it's not about, we're not the place where you just go and put your money. We're the place that does all these more things to enrich your life.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, to me, I just feel like that sense of awareness was really, really powerful on your guys' end to identify that when so many people aren't, when so many financial institutions and other all kind of other industries. I mean, there's all kind of industries out there that are doing incredible things, but they only focus on this like one, and again, I'll say it, stodgy area. Like I think a lot of manufacturing growing up in Cleveland, like manufacturing steel mills and
Mm-hmm.
wire cutters and all this stuff. It's like, how do you evoke personality into that? But you've identified that, and kudos to you. So on that note, what would you say to others who are scared of doing this?
Well, I would say first, if before you think about being scared or not scared, and you're talking about specifically rebranding, correct? Scared of rebranding?
Re- Rebranding or trying to evoke more personality into how you
Uh,
talk about yourself, how you present yourself, your marketing, your swag, your social media presence.
I think you have to start, well, first and foremost, if you're not asking what's the purpose of our organization, if you don't understand that question from a strategic point of view, you cannot make these other decisions because you can't understand the risk you're taking, whether those risks are worth it or not. Uh, if you forget that purpose, then you can get wrapped up in yourself. And by yourself, I mean your organization gets wrapped into itself, and it feels only like a person who's totally involved with themselves. They forget about others. They forget about what they're actually going to do out there.
Right.
Um, that's the biggest danger if you don't first understand your purpose. So I think an organization, before they even think about injecting personality, they understand, what are we here to do? And for credit unions, we had that discussion back in 2014 again. We have that discussion as an organization frequently. And we said our purpose as Zing Credit Union is to advance financial opportunity. And for us, we are very intentional in not putting an object for the English majors out there. We didn't want it to be advanced financial opportunity for our members because that was too closed for us. We want to advance financial opportunity for our staff, our community, and our members. So once you have that purpose, then you can look at, well, what are the costs, what are the risks, and determine if they're worth it. So for us, one huge cost of changing from Denver Community Credit Union to Zing Credit Union was we lost the word Denver. And
Mm,
that was a very, very hard decision
Mm.
because from the perspective of marketing, Denver is very helpful. From the perspective of people who identify with loving Denver as a place to live, that is difficult. But we looked at the research, we listened to people, and they said if we don't live in the city and county of Denver, which is a very specific place, if we live in the suburbs of Denver, then we don't think we can belong. So we had to take a risk. We had to understand a cost of losing Denver because our purpose, because we were firm in our purpose, we understood that to fulfill our purpose, we needed to put belonging over Denver. And so that's why I tell people if they're scared about injecting personality, you first need to start with why are we here as an organization? What do we lose? What are we actually scared of? And what do we gain? And this is common business decision making, right? Like decide, weigh those pros and cons and make your choice. And then, of course, mitigate your risk as much as you can.
That's so interesting to me that were able to not only inject personality, but made yourselves more inclusive and really sort of welcomed more people in by putting that different spin on things.
I can't tell you. I thought that I'm a part of a lot of groups, and I cannot tell you how many people have said to me, oh, does this mean other people can join your credit union now? And I've been telling them for 10, 15 years. Anyone who lives or works in Adams, Arapahoe, Jefferson, or Denver County can join. And we've had members come in and say, so if you're not a city and county employee, you can join now. And I underestimated how many people didn't feel like they would be included with the name.
Yeah.
It cracks me up because Canadian banks, as I'm sure are huge in the States and have these massive presences. So, TD is this monolith, with everything else they've merged with, Ameritrade and everything else. How many people realize that's Toronto Dominion? Or, that I saw Hamilton in Chicago. Yeah. I saw Hamilton in Chicago at the CIBC Theater, and I was talking with a Chicago friend last night, and we were laughing because how many people realize what CIBC's Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce? So it's everywhere, but these financial institutions that can get so much larger than just this narrow pocket by having a little bit of fun with their name.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd say for us, if we want to make an impact in people's lives, they have to understand they can belong first. Like we're not overcoming it through any other messaging because a name does matter.
Absolutely. Your name matters. Your logo matters.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll fight anybody who says different. And I'll lose because I'm a big baby. I'll lose. I'll fight you and I'll lose.
You're a lover, not a fighter. Let's be real.
I am. I've actually never been in a fight in my whole life. Helen, have you ever been in a fight, like a physical fight in your whole life?
A physical fight? No, I'm 5'2" and not very big. So no, I don't get into fights I don't have a chance of winning. Usually. There is sometimes I'll fight because someone needs to be stood up for, but not physically.
Yeah.
I know what I can do around here, and my words are way stronger than my fists.
That question wasn't on the list of questions, but that's okay.
Where we're going with it?
Where we're going with this? Yeah. Okay. Let me bring it back up here. Let me see. Okay. I want to talk to you about a brand that you loved for their personality.
Oh yeah. Well, I would say a brand I like or love for their personality is Southwest Airlines. I
Mm.
I find flying scary, regardless of how many statistics I hear about how safe flight is compared to driving in my car, half awake most mornings. That's obviously more
Mm-hmm.
dangerous than flying, but I think flying is scary. So when Southwest has this quirkier and more relaxed personality, and it's not just in their advertisements, it's on the plane
Mm-hmm.
when you're being helped with your drink or hearing the fasten your seatbelt thing for the 1000th time, they make you feel more comfortable. So I love their brand because it's throughout their organization. It's not just an ad, but also it helps make me feel more comfortable when doing something that is scary for me.
Right. It, and they use humor a lot
A whole
with
lot.
their. I mean, the one guy, he did the whole announcement in Chewbacca voice, but not that Chewbacca speaks English, but like he did the Chewbacca.
Right, right.
What's that called, Shaun? The
Oh God, I know
Chewbacca.
what you're talking about, but I'm not going to try an impression. I've also, to be fair, never flown Southwest, so I can only jump in so much.
Oh man, yeah, they're. So what's interesting about what you said, Helen, I think, is that um, there's so many studies that show that fear and distress can be remedied with humor,
Mhm.
and I think they've really done a great job with that because yeah, you forget even if it's for a minute, when they're cracking jokes over the PA.
Right.
What's a common mistake that you've seen as businesses try to inject personality into their branding?
Hmm. I think, well, and this gets back to something I said earlier. To me, authenticity is key. You can't think of, I'm going to put a new name on this and everything's going to change. And I think sometimes that's how credit unions think. They think, we're going to put this new name on our credit union and everyone's going to come running in the
Hmm.
doors. And this lack of understanding of how people really operate
Hmm.
can sometimes get in the way of what your goals are. And sometimes an organization will put its brand above its purpose, right? They'll say, we really need to take a stand on this political issue. We really need to take a stand um, to talk about this specific audience. But there are times when that's very appropriate and needs to be done. But there are times when that's getting in the way of how you serve the people you're meant to serve, whether they're consumers or members. So the biggest question a brand needs to ask before they say we need to inject our personality or we need to be authentic is, does this serve our purpose? Does making this choice, taking this stand, having this name help us get to where we want to go as an organization? Uh, if you put brand and marketing ahead of that, you may lose people because you stop thinking about the people that you're there to serve. So that's what I would caution against. That and be authentic. If you're not a specific brand, don't try to be. Be you. It's like your mom told you in kindergarten. Be you, not anyone else, because once they get in the door, they're going to understand whether you're really you or not. And they don't want to
Right,
feel like they were bait and switched. So
right.
be you and remember your purpose.
Yeah, I love that. It's hard to remember your purpose.
Yeah,
It's
you have to
hard.
ask. You have to ask constantly. We just did a leadership class and we talked about the different types of purposes. You have situational purpose, like what's the purposes of talking today, versus what your overall life purpose is, versus what your purpose is for your organization. And you
Yeah,
have to reflect and take the time to think about what those are so you stay on track. It's like you need to look at the map sometimes when you're hiking, or you might not end up where you want to go.
exactly. Yeah, that's great. Shaun, do you have any other questions? I want to be mindful of Helen's time.
No, of course. Let's sort of leave it off on a piece of advice. So if you have a brand or a business that's contemplating taking that big rebranding leap, but they're scared to dip their toe in the water, what's a good first step that you'd recommend?
Well, other than knowing your purpose and making sure you're all on the same page,
Mm,
which is not necessarily always true if you hadn't had that discussion recently, but I would say the next thing you need to do is start listening. You need to listen to your staff, the people that talk to your member or consumer every day. Listen to what they're hearing. Listen to what they think is important. Listen to your members, your consumers. You can use research to listen. You can use focus groups. When we started our change, we started in 2017 with focus groups of members, staff, and community members, people that aren't members of our credit union, but could be. And you start with that and the research listening, and then you pull it all together and synthesize that so that you know what your risks are, so that you know what's important to people. We have a member advisory committee that we meet with quarterly, and we sit to them, we ask them, if we go through a change like this, what's the one thing that can never change?
Oh, I love that
And by
question so much.
asking what they never want to see change, we one made sure we didn't change that, but also in our messaging, when we started writing the content, we made sure to talk about that, how that hadn't changed. When we did our focus groups, we talked about what made them change institutions, and we made sure to protect all transactions and how our members use their money from day to day, so that there's almost zero negative impact on how they use their money, because we listened to what was important to our current members and listened to where people who weren't members, why they weren't members and how that worked. And by starting with that listening, we were able to develop a strategy that made sense for our purpose. Now, we kept listening and still are listening. And I know you're never going to make everyone happy, but you have to be authentically your organization and remember your purpose, and then hope that you can prove to people that aren't happy that you're still what they need and what they want over time, because not everyone's always going to be happy. So it's all about listening and then being authentic.
I love that so
Awesome. Thank you
much.
so much.
I'm gonna cry. No, I'm not actually gonna cry, but it's great.
We'll leave room in the audio in case you start.
You guys were really waiting for me to start. Helen, thank you so much. I so appreciate your time, and this was just really wonderful to hear about what you've been up to and what Zing has been up to, and spreading the word on the power of credit unions, and it's all good stuff.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm really excited about your podcast. And thank you for taking the chance on having me as your first guest. And I wish you the best of luck, and everyone listening um, success in what they're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your
Bye.
patience. Very kind.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Oh my goodness, that was so good.
She was amazing.
She's so amazing. I have so much respect for her and what she does with the credit union movement and seriously changing people's lives. So the one thing that really struck me, that what she said, and I even wrote it down here. What's the one thing that can never change? So
That was so
asking
powerful.
your clients, your customers, like I've never thought of it that way. To
It,
ask it in that it like flips everything about brand strategy on itself.
it's smart and it provides that comfort. We talked about sort of ripping the band-aid and making a rebrand that's really uncomfortable. No, it provides some constancy. It provides some peace of mind that, okay, we're
Hmm.
not going to completely overhaul your business. We're going to do things in a way that's smart and that's innovative, but that still gives you some comfort. And she talked about listening. That to me is sort of that key example of listening to what's important before you make any sudden moves.
Exactly. Oh, I couldn't agree more. I'm really happy we were able to have her on, and I think she's a great. Zing is a great example of personality in an industry that's, this is probably the 10th time we've said it, is inherently stodgy. Um, and it's okay if your audience, if you're authentically stodgy and your customer base is stodgy, then great. Then lean into that stodginess. that's the beauty of having the personality, is that it can be whatever, your customers want it to be.
Exactly. And if your business is about being stodgy, but you have some fun, you can start making fun of that stodginess and, play up,
Exactly.
with a comic tinge about, we'll talk about humor on our next episode, but, with a comic tinge of how staid and how historic you are. Don't take yourself
Exactly.
too seriously even if you're taking the work too seriously.
Man, I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Epic, epic advice from a Canadian friend.
Well,
Listen,
thank you
Any
to my American
Americans
now.
listening right now, you need to listen to the Canadians more. They know what's going on up there.
If that's the advice you get from this podcast,
They're
I'm
gonna-
on board with that too.
so on that note, let's close. Thank you so much, everyone who's watching and listening. Uh, Again, my name is Alicia Disantis. I'm founder of 38th and KIP Branding and Design. You can find me on LinkedIn at Alicia DeSantis Design. You can also follow me on Instagram at 38 and Kip underscore design. And you can find my portfolio and branding strategy examples on 38andkip.com.
And I'm Shaun Bernstein. The Right Stuff Agency is everywhere. So it is www.therightstuff, THEWRITE, stuff.agency. No, you don't just have to do a .com anymore. You can do a basically anything. So it's therightstuff.agency. I'm also on Instagram at The Right Stuff Agency and Facebook at The Right Stuff Agency. And I don't have a Twitter going. I'm on TikTok, I think, at the Right Stuff Agency. Uh, Feel free to reach out. You can reach me through the website if you want to chat further about, and you can reach Alicia through hers about telling your stories. We'd love to help.
Thank you so much, Shaun, and thanks everyone for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.